The Mazda MX-5 is the open-air sensation of the 1990s and triggers a worldwide roadster boom. BMW also introduced the Z3 in 1995, an open two-seater available with either 4 or 6 cylinders. And the roadster wave even reaches as far as Stuttgart. The Mercedes SLK is the Swabian version of pure driving pleasure. And what does Porsche offer? This first concept is shown at the 1993 Detroit Car Show. The Boxster concept seamlessly continues the line of its ancestors from 550 Spider to 718 RS. 3 years later, the production model is launched. Walter Röhrl and Tim Schrick recall the beginnings of the mid-engine roadster.
25 years ago, it started with the Boxster. I remember that my friends and I kind of laughed about it because we thought the 911 is a Porsche and everything else can't be one.
That's true. It probably happened to everyone. Of course, with 204 horsepower, you'd say it's a sporty convertible. But in terms of sportiness, it is far from it. What actually is crucial for me is that in principle this car was the lifesaver for Porsche. It was a pretty tricky situation back then, but thanks to this car and the shared parts philosophy, things skyrocketed. In retrospect, I have to say this car was a real hit.
More displacement and up to 320 horsepower are available in the successor of the 987 series presented in 2005, while the third generation from 2012 mainly combines more wheelbase with less weight.
And here we come to the topic of downsizing. The world wants to be saved.
4-cylinder, but still really powerful. So the 2.5-liter is impressive. The VTG goes from bottom to top.
With the GTS on the Salzburg ring, annoying GT3s, like lawyers and dentists. Just awesome. They were completely thrilled afterwards. One of them said, "Luckily you drove the black one, thank goodness."
I once drove in the Mille Miglia with the 55 Spider. I was so upset, so now I'm going to ride the machine, just drive. Run into 3 Germans with the GT3, overtake them, drive away. Of course, I arrive way too early, stand there. Then the GT3 approaches me and says, "Thank God."
With a lot of international racing fame,
Tim, kannst du mich hören? Ja, ich höre dich weiter. Super.
That's obviously legendary. I don't know anyone on this planet who doesn't know Walter Röhrl as an icon of rally racing and driving in general. I always get as excited as a schnitzel when I know I can meet Walter. Now, with distancing rules and all that, we couldn't drive together in one car and take turns, which would have been even cooler. But we drove one behind the other in 2 cars, but still, totally slashed over and over. What kind of a super relaxed guy he is, who has such skill and is so fit, and has such charisma, just pure inspiration.
What could be better than blue sky, ice, and snow? For a driver, nothing is better. For a driver like me, there are many who don't like it as much. But here, of course, it's a dream to drive around with such cars, to sharpen the senses on how driving really works. And of course, we had 2 great cars in which we drove around here.
But with 400 horsepower on ice, even seasoned pilots must be cautious.
Ist da noch alles dran? Ja, alles dran. Ein bisschen Schnee ist dran, aber sonst nichts.
A lot more slippery than yesterday. I was already a bit nervous. Right in the first lap in the hairpin, I spun right away and went backwards slightly into this snow wall. I asked, "Is everything in place?" There was just a bit of snow on it. Otherwise, everything's fine. I thought, man, pull yourself together. How embarrassing.
Well, cold tires are definitely not an excuse here.
I believe there is no better option for a driver to get to know your car and train yourself on how to drive on ice and snow. This is simply the friction values, the grip is reduced. You have to do everything much more delicately. So you need to have more sensitivity for the steering, more for the gas, more for the brake. You have to react in time. You need to understand if the car is understeering or oversteering. If you take an hour to drive in such conditions, you will definitely become a different driver afterward.
Driving fast on ice is a challenge even for professionals.
I was usually the one in rallying who didn't drive for the spectators, but for the clock. And that's clear to everyone when you drive a lot sideways. This is not necessarily fast, but it is, of course, the best way to learn to drive, to get a feel for the car, to simply become one with it. And this has been known for years. Everyone knows that Tim is the most gifted drifter there is. It doesn't matter which car. A car that others would be afraid to even unlock in the morning, Tim sits in and drifts across the green ridge, sending bits flying. You really have to say, hats off. And in addition, he is also, by nature, he loves cars, he loves driving. And I find that incredibly likable. Nowadays, there are so many people for whom a car is just a means to an end to get from A to B. And when you tell them it's fun, they say, how? And I don't understand that because driving is one of the most enjoyable activities there is.
A cheer for automotive winter sports.